What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have big data coming out from our employment sector, not to mention some important earnings and reactions like that. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, and the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, as far as the market is going, okay, I think that Tesla has a very, very nice setup right here. We have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure. I gave you guys a video about this right before the market closed today. I gave you guys a heads up about this, about how we were looking very promising. There was a nice setup on Tesla. And then on top of that, I just wanted to mention that we were getting all this bad news, right? There's all this news about how the German sales are crashing, the European sales are tanking, the American sales are this and that. And there's all this fear about it. But I just think that much of that fear may have been priced in after Tesla just got, decimated for the last couple of days. Tesla used to be at almost, if you just go back to like Tuesday, Tesla was at 394. It was hitting the 390s, not too far from 400. Now we went all the way down to 363. But the reason why I'm talking about why there might be a bounce is because when you zoom out and you go to your 4-hour time frame, Tesla hit a very, very big level. So we hit this 363 area, this previous resistance where this cup and handle happens to be. We hit this and we held so far. We actually formed an inverse head and shoulders off of this, which is a very, very good sign. Now, hypothetically, if we're hit with a very, very bad piece of news, if something really bad happens and Tesla loses, the 363 area, yes, I will become a little bit more concerned. But as of right now, we're holding it very nicely. We also happen to have a nice amount of buyers who are defending right over there. And then the last thing is, like I said before, this inverse head and shoulders, which is very, very promising. So looking at Tesla tomorrow, if not by early next week, if we consolidate here and start pushing, we form a nice base in the 360s, and we see this thing start to slingshot off of them. We want to see it break 375. Once we break that, I think we could be trying to get back up towards like 390 plus, if not try to go for a gap fill. So I'll talk more about Tesla's technicals in just a couple of minutes. But I first want to talk about something else that's affecting us, right? Because we do have big data coming out for tomorrow, which could affect Tesla. So what's happening, as you guys know, and just as a reminder, Tesla had all this bad news involving their sales going down, the tariffs that came out on China, and the list goes on. But much of that could be priced in, and I think that buyers might defend us despite some negative news. So what's going on with the markets? Well, honestly, the market was very mixed today. We saw many of these big tech stocks kind of flat. Some stocks like Nvda were pumping. And then we saw Tesla in the red alongside many different sectors from consumer durables, not to mention others such as like commercial services and energy, and the list goes on. So mixed day for the markets. Some sectors were red, some were green. And because the majority of bigger stocks that impact our ETFs were in the green, we started to see SPY holding up very nicely. We saw the QQQ hold up very nicely. The market dipped. We saw this dip that came, and then as soon as the market dipped, minutes after, the buyers came back and they pumped us right back up into the green. So the buyers are very strong. Tesla followed the same pattern. We dumped to 363, and then we got some buyers that defended it back up to about 374. So that's a very, very good sign. So what does this mean for the future for Tesla and many others? Let's talk about this. Just know a couple of things. For Friday, okay, one thing that's very interesting is there's not really anything significant for earnings, but then for today, we just got Amazon's earnings, and this is the interesting part. So despite the fact that Amazon sold off by 4%, SPY and the QQQ are holding up. Even like Tesla's holding up, the market is still holding up quite nicely despite this. That's a very, very good sign of resilience so far. Why is Amazon in the red? Well, Amazon had their earnings. They had strong earnings for Q4, but the stock dipped because of the fact that their guidance was a little bit poor for the first quarter. So going back to the data, you guys could see, we basically saw something very interesting right here about how their earnings totaled at about $187.8 billion, up 10% for their revenue. That's for the fourth quarter. Profits were at about $20 billion. Everything was above expectations. EPS was at $1.86 above expectations of $1.49. Good job by them. However, when you look at what they're expecting for Q1, we saw that they're expecting basically between 151 to about $155.5 billion in revenue. That is lower than the $158 billion expectation from analysts. So not the best of news from them. So that's why we saw Amazon sell off a bit. Their guidance was not as strong. We also saw their Amazon Web Services generating revenue that was below expectations at $28.79 billion. And there were some concerns involving their sales because they are very dependent on other countries because of tariffs. So the Chinese tariffs could affect them, not to mention the ones that should be coming to like Mexico and Canada. Keep in mind, those are not necessarily out of the water. They're simply just delayed for now. So those pieces of news led to some fears amongst investors. That's why we got this sell-off on Amazon. So once again, Amazon sold off about 4%. It's holding its support. It's actually holding a key support so far. So I'm going to hope that ends up holding its support. But despite that, like I said before, the market is very resilient. SPY is only down 0.1%, holding support very nicely, and its wedge. The QQQ is also holding up its wedge very nicely. And then Tesla's also holding its key support. So the market's very resilient. Now, there's one more big piece of data that's going to come out that could affect the markets, and then we'll talk about the charts. Just know that tomorrow is going to be Friday, February 7th, 2025. Please keep in mind that at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's about 1 hour before the stock market opens, we have the non-farm payrolls, governmental payrolls, manufacturing payrolls, and lots of data like that. Then we also have the unemployment rate coming out. Unemployment is going to be very important for affecting the way the market's going to move, so please keep that in mind. That's going to be very, very big. If we get good unemployment numbers, this could help the market pump more. If not, that could lead to a sell-off. So we'll see what this leads to. My gut tells me the market might go higher, but I'll talk about why in just a minute. One last thing, we have our fear and greed index currently at fear. It's going to get very close to neutral very soon. Momentum is also at fear. We'll see if this shifts or not. And then the put to call option ratio went up as we started to see a lot of put buyers. As soon as people started loading up on puts, the market started squeezing, and the VIX still looks bearish. But once we get closer to the 14s, which I think the VIX dips a little bit more as the market pumps, but once it's the 14s, that's when the market could be, starting to turn. So, what do I see for the charts? As far as Tesla goes, to start things off, this could be a bottoming signal with this inverse head and shoulders. This is the first confluence we're looking at. I could be looking for this to attempt to run back up towards these higher levels. This could start to try to reverse. If we break 375 tomorrow, if not by Monday, I will be expecting us to push back up to this trend line around 382. That's going to be a very, very good sign. And then on top of this, when you look at our 4-hour time frame, the 4-hour is about to catch up. So if you look down at the MACD, it hasn't caught up yet. But I would like to see it reclaim 375, and then we will turn back up. So there's a good chance that we're going to try to bottom. For clarification, if we lose 368 and 365, we're looking for 363 as critical support. If 363 fails us, this will be dumping more, but I don't think that's very likely. Right now, as long as there's no very, very bad news, there's a chance Tesla could try to reclaim 375 and make its way up higher. I also want to mention that despite this downtrend, there's a big gap to fill over here, and we have some gaps left on the daily chart that Tesla could try to fill. So if you look at the daily charts, right, look at the daily, guys, it looks bullish. This is another confluence. There's obviously this gap over here. This could try to be pushing back up towards that, the 380 area. So I think there's a very good chance that Tesla tries to slowly rebound. So I think this is a good opportunity, and we look quite good on the daily time frame looking at this setup. So I think there's going to be a temporary bounce on Tesla. It could be starting as soon as tomorrow, if not by early next week. And hopefully we see some buyers who try to defend this to try to get a nice rebound after so much downside for the last couple of months. All right, so I hope that's as clear as possible. The daily, the 4-hour, and then our 5-minute time frames all show that Tesla may try to bounce. It's also because the news has been priced in for the most part, so I think that we're in a good place, in my personal opinion. With that being said, let's talk about the rest of these tickers. So what about SPY? What do I think is going to happen to SPY? SPY in the daily looks bullish, although it might gap down a little bit because of Amazon. We're still looking very resilient. So what I like about SPY, and this could also help Tesla and many others, is the fact that we had a low down here at 590. We bounced, made a higher low, bounced, made a higher low over and over again. Today we dipped to 602, and as soon as we touch that, the buyers come right back up and push us very fast to 606. If you don't believe me, just check this out, guys, okay? Here's my proof. Look how fast the buyers came. SPY was just consolidating all day. We got this quick sell-off, and within an hour, SPY went from 602 right back up to 606. The buyers defended it very, very nicely. On top of this, we're holding this wedge very well so far. So if I zoom out, you guys will see this. This wedge is holding up. So as long as we hold this wedge, we are technically in a bullish move. Now, is it going to last forever? No, it's not going to last forever. But here's how I see it. See this yellow trend line of support? We were here, we bounced, we came close to it, we bounced, came close to it, we bounced, we came close to it, we bounced. So it's going to likely continue to ride the wedge up, okay? And I think that we could be on our way for 609 to 610, maybe even a little higher. We'll see about that. And then there could be a move back down. The last two times we had 608 to 610, actually the last couple of times we rejected. So it might be making a move like this as the most likely possibility. So that's what I'm essentially seeing. If we hypothetically lose 602, I will turn bearish at least beforehand. And as long as we're above this trend line, I remain bullish. What I predict is going to happen, and this is my prediction for now, is that we kind of like decline a little bit, maybe because of Amazon's earnings. Maybe the unemployment numbers help us push, and we just continue to fill this imbalance over here, back up towards that 609 to 610 area. And then maybe when the VIX is in like the 14s, then we could be looking for that reversal. That's what I think is the most likely possibility. This also correlates with the QQQ. The QQQ is only down 0.11% despite the fact that Amazon was down 4%, showing some more resilience. It bounced off support, bounced over and over again. Today it touched 525, and then buyers came back and pushed us back up to about 530. So we're looking bullish. I think there's a good chance it tries to go for that imbalance towards 530, if not the low 530s up here. I think 530 or so is coming for a few points higher. And then once we're close to 530 to 533, then we could be looking for a move back down. But that's what I think is most likely going to be coming to Amazon. If we hypothetically lose 522, though, we could be dumping early. I don't think it's very probable so far. I think we favor upside for 530 to 533. Then we might be looking for a move after that. I want to call out the Russell 2000. So this is in a tough place. Yes, there's a very nice looking inverse head and shoulders here, which tends to favor upside. But what's good is the fact that I think that this might try to push for 230. If we break this, this is going to be making a bigger move towards 232. So I think there's a good chance it tries to break or at least retest 230. As long as we don't lose 226, we favor a retest of 230 or above. For ES, we look bullish. We're technically trying to break past this yellow resistance. We have a nice uptrend and we're very resilient, fighting at 6,100. So to be bearish, I want to see it lose 60-60. So far, it has not done that. We're bouncing and bouncing and bouncing off support. So I think there's a good chance that we try to continue to push up for these higher levels towards 61.25. So we'll see if this breaks or not. As long as we're above 6,100, I'm looking for 61.25. And then we'll see if we get some kind of like sell-off from there as we're forming a nice wedge. So overall, it looks bullish, and I think that this is favoring upside, and we'll see if this continues or not. So keep that in mind. But so far, ES does favor, wants to go into the 6100s for now. Same thing with NQ. Now, NQ and a blue trend line of resistance, we bounced, and even after Amazon sold off a bit, it's still holding up and trying to push. So this makes me suspect that as long as we're above this yellow trend line, okay, this is going to likely try to go a little higher for about the 21,900s or a little bit above that before it starts to sell off again. But that's what I'm finding to be the most likely possibility. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin's on a bit of a downtrend here. You guys can see it's continuing to downtrend. We'll have to see if we reclaim 98,000 to try to bounce. Otherwise, it's kind of downtrending right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if this continues this downtrend for a little bit longer towards this imbalance over here at 95,000. But then hopefully once we get close to that support, we try to get a bounce like that. We'll see. I want to see it reclaim 98,000 at the very least to try to bounce. Otherwise, it's still on a bit of a downtrend for now. Nvidia is looking very strong, very resilient because it's above its 126 area. That's our 50 EMA. If we lose that, we're looking for 124 as our support. As long as we're above 126, we do favor a push for 130 then 132 as the most likely possibilities. I'm hoping for a bounce on Tesla as well, by the way. As long as we try to hold support, it could continue to try to uptrend very soon. Hopefully tomorrow or early next week, we see buyers defend us, whether we get a small dip and then bounce, or as long as we hold 363, I think Tesla will try to rebound, by the way. Just watch and see if 363 holds for tomorrow. That's all I want to see. And then I think that this will try to rebound off its inverse head and shoulders. I'll keep you guys updated in case it holds or not. Apple looks bullish because we have this inverse head and shoulders, a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. And then when you zoom into the right shoulder here, this is also forming a bullish wedge. So as long as we don't lose 230, we are favoring upside. Like you're doing this basically on Apple, getting tighter, might pull back a little bit tomorrow, and then it might just try to break out for 236 as our potential target as long as we break 233. 233, as long as that breaks, we're looking for 236, so it looks bullish. Let me go over the rest of these and try to be kind of quick now. Netflix is very resilient. As long as we don't lose 1,000, we're favoring a move back up towards 1,025. So I think there's a good chance it tries to continue this pump. For MSTR is looking decent. It's been making lower highs right over here, but one thing I like is the fact that this is completely in the middle. So there's a possible inverse head and shoulders here. Okay. This could be our support at 322.5. This could be our left shoulder. This could be our head, and this could be our right shoulder. If we hold 322.5, this could be bouncing for 337. If we lose 322.5, then I do expect this to dump to 310. So it depends if we hold support or not. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders, but we'll see just to be safe if it pans out. Celsius is on a bit of a downtrend. We're looking for 22 as our main support area. If that fails us, we could be dipping back down towards the 21 flat area. So it's still looking bearish. It's still on a downtrend, but there is a falling wedge that's forming on it, which is a promising sign. But there's no sign of a break yet. So it's still technically bearish. This is bearish. It could dip even more. Until we get a break, I will switch my direction, but I'm not seeing signs of that yet. So it's bearish until we get that bounce. We're not showing signs yet. Super micro, as long as we're above 32.98, we favor upside. We'll see if we can try to get back above the 35s to push up for 36.5. If we end up losing 32.5, we're looking for a dump to 30.5, but this is looking a bit more bullish. So as long as we're above 32.98, we could continue to uptrend back up for 35. So I think this is looking even more bullish. It may be trying to follow Nvda. There might be a little sell-off here to retest 32.98 before it tries to bounce higher, but this is still looking quite good when I look at this chart. For others, we have Palantir's looking very bullish, guys. I said yesterday I'm going to be looking for 100 to be tested. If we lost that, the 93 would come in. We were expecting a bounce, but we actually held very, very nicely around that 100 area. So we held 100. We broke resistance. So now we're looking for an attempt to get closer to 115 and eventually 120. If that breaks, it still looks very bullish. Rivian is in the middle. We have 12.7 as our support and then 12.99 as our resistance. We're kind of going back and forth. It might retest this low here. Might dip towards 12.6 before it tries to bounce, but I just see a lot of sideways price action. SoFi is on a bit of a downtrend, making lower highs ever since earnings. I want to see it reclaim 15.15. If not, it may continue to dip towards like the low 14s, like 14 flat before it tries to bounce. So there might be some more downside. AMD is a little bit bearish looking, making lower highs at least thus far. So with that being said, guys, there's a good chance that we could see this continue to downtrend a little bit, especially after we got this rejection. I'm not seeing signs of a rebound yet. What's happening is this might revisit these lows here, and then we'll see if we get a bounce off those. If we lose 107-ish, we could be looking for like 105 and even the low 100s. I would like to see a double bottom and a retest, and then once we break, I think there's a resistance right over here. If we could break this resistance, I think that would be a very, very good sign. So if you like draw it out like this, I want to see it break first, right? If we could break this white trendline resistance, then yes, I will turn more bullish. There's no sign of it breaking yet. So we'll see, guys. If we break that, then it's going to be bullish. We're just waiting for that. ARM has a possible cup and handle. It might retest 162 to 158, a little bit of a dip here before it tries to bounce, but it's still looking resilient. Might dip a little bit more, guys. We'll see if buyers defend it by 158. If we lose that, I will be a lot more concerned, but there's still a possible cup and handle. Coinbase has support currently at 266. We'll see if we hold that. There's a double top here, so it still looks a bit more bearish. No sign of a bounce yet. Might make a move like this for now. Not looking that great if we end up losing 270, so 266 could be retested. Amazon, it dumped all the way down to our 200 EMA, but it's going to be fine as long as we don't lose 224. So watch that very, very carefully. So watch 224. We'll see if we bounce off that. Then we could be looking for essentially 232 plus. If 224 fails us, we could be looking bearish, but we're in the middle. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of shuffling on Amazon like this, going back and forth between these levels, but it might slowly climb its way back up as time goes on, as it tends to be very resilient. As long as 224 does not break, that's what I expect. If we do lose 224, I will become concerned, but so far I don't think that's the most likely possibility. It's holding up nicely. That may cause some volatility in the markets. We have Meta. As long as it's above 700, that's near our 20 EMA. This is looking bullish for 720 as a potential target. Microsoft could be forming an inverse head and shoulders, so I see potential in this. This is kind of like our left shoulder here. This is like our head that's forming a double bottom. And then this is like, it might dip to form a right shoulder because of Amazon before it tries to bounce like this. If it doesn't get the dip, it might just skip the right shoulder and just start pushing up towards like the 420 area. But I do expect it to be bullish either way, whether we dip to 412 first and bounce or not. We'll see about that. Google is in the middle. We have to hold 191 to 189. As long as that holds, we could attempt a rebound. Might dip a little bit. Might see a small dip to 191 to 189 before it tries to bounce. So just keep that in mind. GameStop, a little bit in the middle. I want to see if it can reclaim 25 to bounce to about 25.5. AMC is completely choppy right here. Might retest 3.15, but I'm not really seeing much. DJT, as long as we're above 32.2 and we're looking for 33.4 as our targets, it might dip a little bit towards like 32 flat before it tries to bounce. The VIX is technically on a downtrend. Once we get to like the 14s, that's when I think that buying calls could be a good move, but there's no sign that it's truly going to bottom yet. It's still technically on a bit of a downtrend. It could continue to fall lower as the market pumps, so just keep that in mind. The 10-year is going to be reacting to unemployment. It still looks bearish, which is good for stocks. The dollar is also looking a little bit more bearish, which tends to be bullish for the markets. We'll see what happens with the unemployment numbers. With that being said, in conclusion, Tesla is doing a good job at holding 363. As long as we hold that tomorrow, I think there's a good chance it will reverse. Keep in mind that we have unemployment numbers coming out that could also affect things. So we'll see if Tesla gets one more dip before it tries to bounce, but there's a good chance it will bounce very, very soon. I still hold that view. As long as we don't lose 363, as long as we hold that, I'm going to be expecting a bounce to fill this gap into much higher levels. So let's hope that 363 holds. Let's hope we get that bounce off of that, and then Tesla will likely continue to push. Like I said before, if we lose it, yes, that can make things complicated, but right now we're still looking more and more bullish. So let's hope 363 holds and Tesla can start pushing back up to the 380s, 390s, and etc. I think a bounce is on the way is the most likely possibility, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a good one, and peace out.